Welcome to What the F Do I Cook for People with Food Allergies? Today, I really hope we can beep that out. You can, okay. So today I'm going to be making tacos, which is perfect for when you have to accommodate multiple dietary needs. I'm gonna be making a skirt steak. We're gonna be making roasted mushrooms for any vegans or vegetarians. We're gonna be making a cabbage slaw without mayo. It's gonna be with vinegar and lime juice. We're making a homemade mayonnaise, and we're making guacamole. I think that this is a really fun way to give people options. They can customize their plates without a spotlight on them. You can really accommodate multiple needs depending on whatever that is at the table. It's just a great way to bring everybody together, and who doesn't love tacos? This meal has many parts to it, so the first thing we're gonna start with is the cabbage slaw. This needs to sit for a little bit with salt on it to draw out the water content. Cabbage tends to have a lot of water in it. Sometimes not, it depends. You'll salt it, you'll set it aside, and then whatever water there is left over, you're gonna drain out. If you don't do that, then it is just kind of watery and diluted, and it's not what you want. One of the elements that make a taco good is that crunch. To me, the shredded cabbage works really well. You're gonna get that crunch. It's also just more nutritious than iceberg lettuce, but I love iceberg lettuce. So let's start. I'm gonna just take off some of these grubby outer leaves of your cabbage. This one's in pretty good condition. I'll go down another leaf or two. We're only gonna use half the cabbage. You'd be surprised when you start shredding cabbage. It's a lot. So you're gonna cut your, this is a little intense. You wanna leave it intact at the bottom, but I'm just cutting that through. So you wanna cut your cabbage through the core first in half. This is kind of big. I'm gonna get a bigger knife, hold on. So we wanna cut our cabbage in half first through the core. Great. Then turn it down so it's stable, and then cut again. We're gonna cut it into quarters so it's easy to use the mandolin. So we're gonna cut again through the core, and that's it. Since I'm only using a half, I'll just stick this back in the fridge. Cut the core out now because we don't wanna shred that in. So I'm just gonna do just a V. Get that out. Get your mandolin. If you don't have a mandolin, you can totally slice this by hand. You just wanna go really thin. I love this, but it's also terrifying, so you need to just be careful and adjust it. I like my slaw really fine and thin, so I'm gonna just run a few and just see how thin we have it. Okay, not thin enough, so I'm gonna adjust it again. Let's see. That's good. I suggest going thinner. See, you have these really nice thin shreds. This is what we want, paper thin. And you want to set them inside a colander that's set inside a bowl because we're going to toss this with salt and all the water is going to drain. So just continue to work your way down. When you get close to the bottom, I kind of chicken out and stop with a lot of room because I'm not interested in slicing off the top of my finger. This is also, a half a cabbage is gonna give you a lot of cabbage, which is fine because cabbage, once it's dressed, unlike salad, can actually stand up pretty well in the fridge. You can have this slaw left over the next day in a salad. You can make another leftover taco. It's not gonna be limp and slimy the way just a regular tender leaf salad would be. Kale, cabbage, these kinds of veggies hold up really well dressed and refrigerated. Okay, that is it. That was too close for comfort for me, so I'm done with this. Okay, so the next step is we're gonna take salt, a couple of big pinches. So 1, 2, I know it looks like a lot of salt, but it's not, it's good. It'll season it, but it'll draw out all the moisture. so that when you're going back later to actually finish this off and dress it, all that excess liquid will be out, and then you'll just have this really nice, it's seasoned really well, and it won't water down your dressing. You just want to get the salt mixed well. Cabbage is salted. I am going to be making a chipotle mayo. It is vegan. It is made with avocado oil, veganese, and it is perfect for tacos. So we are gonna make a vegan chipotle lime mayonnaise. It's dairy-free. It's also egg-free, which is a common allergy for people. So it's a really good option. And it tastes very familiar. This does not taste like an alternative mayonnaise whatsoever. Okay. So again, the recipe is gonna be somewhere. So I'm eyeballing this. It's about a cup of mayonnaise. So that's about a cup. Yeah, about half a jar. What is this? I can't see anything. 1 cup, half a jar of mayo. Canned chipotle peppers in adobo sauce. We're gonna use 2 peppers, and we're gonna use some of the sauce. So depending on how spicy you like this, I don't like to be sweating and my mouth numb. I like to taste my food. So I'm not huge on big spice, but again, you do you. I think 2 peppers. This is about 2 because this is broken up. And then a little bit of the sauce that's in the can, just to add more flavor without a ton of extra heat, is a good way to do that. A little bit of lime juice. This lime is really juicy, so maybe I'll just do half a lime. Sometimes you open up these guys and they're dry as a bone and you need the whole one. Again, you just want to have about a tablespoon of lime juice. Tamari, gluten-free soy sauce. Not too much, just about a teaspoon. It just adds a nice little savory, salty element. Okay. I like to add a little bit of maple syrup. For me, it's important when you have a sauce like this, any kind of sauce, I like it to be balanced. And a lot of times when there's salt and there's acid, I need a little bit of sweet. It's not going to taste sweet. It just balances it out. So we'll start with a teaspoon. Nice pinch of salt. Fresh ground black pepper. You just want to make sure you blend down those peppers. You don't want to get a big chunk of pepper in your mouth with this mayo. All right, let's see. Looks beautiful. It's exactly the color I want it to be. So now we're gonna taste. It's delicious. I'm gonna add a little bit more lime juice. Okay, let's try again. I think that's delicious. Just gonna set this aside. You can put this in the fridge. You should make this up front. I like to do all the side stuff up front so that it's waiting for you, so that when you've grilled your meat and you've cooked your mushrooms and you're ready to serve the meal, all of your accompaniments are done. Can you see that? I'm gonna put some plastic wrap over that and stick it in the fridge. You could also, now that I'm thinking of it, if you wanted to, you could also add like 1 small clove of fresh garlic grated into that to give it a little extra kick. I think there's gonna be a lot of spices going on, but if you wanted to use this for something else and punch it up, you could definitely add some fresh garlic. This is gonna go in the fridge. First, we're gonna get 4 avocados. I hope this one felt a little overripe, to be honest, but I need to make this video, so here we are. Cut your avocado in half. Some people just squeeze out the pit. I don't like to do that. I don't know why, but I prefer to just put the knife in the pit and give it a little twist, and it comes out. Voila. So I will do that with all 4 avocados, get them ready. Once you've made the guacamole, you can put the pit back into the guac when you store it in the fridge. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I don't really know if that works. I've never really looked into it. It's never really, it looks cool, but I just don't, I don't know. What I do, which I'm gonna show you, is I create like an airtight seal over the surface of the guacamole. I think that's much more effective. Okay, so these are just small little tricks, but they're helpful. Just dice your avocado in the skin. But can you see how like perfect these avocados are? They're firm, but they're soft. They're not mushy. They don't have that brown edge. Okay, we've diced everything. Now you want to get a big spoon, and then you're just literally swiping it out, and now it's pre-diced so that when you go back in later to mash it, it's much easier. You're not starting with like a whole side of an avocado, which can be cumbersome. Guacamole is inherently allergen friendly. There is no gluten or dairy, so there's no substitutes necessary. It's got lots of healthy fat. It really enriches the meal. It helps everybody feel full and satisfied. So let's say you didn't even want to have mayonnaise or sour cream or cheese or anything. I think even if you just topped it off with avocado or guacamole, you're still going to feel satisfied and full. It is good to get some citrus over this because that does help prevent from browning. So we'll get that in there quickly. I've got a lime. You could use lemon, but I'm going to use lime. These limes are so juicy. They're amazing. Look at that. A couple of big pinches of kosher salt. You know, you've got 4 avocados in here, so don't be shy. Fresh pepper. And then the secret ingredient to my guacamole, which I will say I've had a lot of people really comment on how much they love my guacamole and what is it and blah, 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 blah. I put in ground cumin. It just adds a familiar spice from Mexican cuisine. It's just it's a nice surprise. Okay, I like to use a spoon and a fork to mash. I pick up a mound of avocado on the spoon and I just press the fork against it. Instead of sitting here and like using the side of the bowl and the avocados slide all over the place, and I find that to be really annoying. I just kind of put things in front of the back of a spoon and push them onto the spoon, if that makes sense. And once you break down those bigger hunks, then you can ditch the spoon and kind of get in there with just the fork. So now you can see we're mashed, but there's still some like nice big chunks, which I think just feels more handmade, homemade. It's just a nice texture. It's the perfect texture for guac in my opinion. Okay, put that aside. Now we're gonna get a little bit of red onion in here. I think typically white onion is used. I like red, it's a little sweeter. White onion is a little milder. Cut the onion in half, cut the tip off, leave it attached at the root, and then it just makes it easier to peel off this outer skin. To dice this, we start by flat cut side down. We're gonna go horizontally. That's the oven, it's ready. Just make a few slices horizontally in rows. I'm using about a quarter of a red onion. And then we're gonna go down vertically. Then we'll come across and we'll just do a small dice. Woo! I feel like that's enough. This is also potent. Oof. Okay. Put the red onion in. Oh my God, my eyes are totally tearing. Fresh cilantro. I love fresh cilantro. If you're one of those people with the soap tasting gene, obviously, just leave it out. I'm also not big on I don't mind the stems, a little bit of stems in the cilantro. They're tender, and they have a lot of flavor, so I wouldn't get hung up on taking all the leaves off of the stems. Just mince it up. Love it. Okay, we're gonna pop that in. You'd think you should use a spoon to do this, but I'm gonna use a fork because not really mashing, just kind of pressing all these things into it. Okay, so now we must taste and adjust. So instead of sticking my whole finger in here, I'll just, whatever. It's really good. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more lime juice. I mentioned before, I think it's important to make these things up front, but then you wanna store them in the fridge until it's time to eat. So just get all your guac as much as you can into the center of the bowl there. You know, you really like that. And then, it's so good. Instead of putting your plastic wrap over the top of your bowl, which does absolutely nothing except trapped air in there and help your guacamole get brown, I like to go in on the surface. So we're gonna put it on and then we're just gonna literally press out. You're vacuum sealing basically your guac by hand. So just press out as much of the air pockets as you can and really get that plastic on the surface so that no air hits it. This works really well for me. I do this, if I make guacamole and there's leftover, you do this at night, you can still eat it the next morning. So that's what we're gonna do. Can you see it? Stick this in the fridge. We're gonna finish up our cabbage slaw and then we're gonna get to the meat and the mushrooms. Okay, so we're gonna come back to the slaw now. I've made a couple of things. This has been sitting aside. Typically it takes about 15 or 20 minutes and different cabbages release different amounts of liquid. This one, as you can see, the liquid in the bottom of this bowl, this is what we're trying to get rid of. We don't want that in here because then it will just dilute all the other things that we put on it. So just press it. Let's just see if, we're good, okay. So transfer the slaw, or transfer the cabbage to the bowl that you want to serve in. I think that's best. All right, now we've got the cabbage. Look how pretty. I think this is so pretty. Okay. We're gonna add a little bit of vinegar, red wine vinegar, just a couple tablespoons. 1, 2, 3. Again, lime juice. These limes are juicy, we know that. So just squeeze some fresh lime juice in there. Again, about a tablespoon or so. You're gonna taste it after and adjust. Also gonna get some fresh cilantro. Again, small handful, I would say maybe a 1/4 cup of chopped cilantro. If the stems are extra long, just kind of pinch those off, but don't worry about the rest. And then just run your knife through the herbs. Get them into the bowl. This is a really simple slaw. I'm gonna use my hands and just mix this together. Get your olive oil in with your vinegar and your lime juice, your fresh cilantro, and just toss everything together. Make sure it's what we want. Awesome. I love this. Very simple, nice and acidic. It's gonna be great on a taco. These are gorgeous, big, wild oyster mushrooms. They're beautiful. And I like them for this because, well, mushrooms shrink when you cook them. So when these shrink in the oven and cook down, they don't fully disappear. I would suggest if you're going to use mushrooms as a taco filling, to try to find wild mushrooms. You can use oyster mushrooms, you can use chanterelles. There's lots of mushrooms at the store. You just want something that's like big and fluffy if you can. Mushrooms are meaty and chewy the way sliced steak might be. They go well together. You could put steak and a mushroom in your taco if you like, but they really are a good substitute. So you can break them apart or slice them. Let's see. I'm gonna break them apart and see how that goes. Yeah, so also, don't wash your mushrooms. They absorb water. We don't want that. They're gonna release a lot of water. That's why they shrink. So I've already cleaned these. I brushed them off with a clean, damp dish towel. If there's any dirt, you can just brush it off with a towel. So I'm gonna leave them in nice big pieces like this. Maybe you're not vegan or vegetarian and you just love mushrooms. You want about a pound. This is a little over a pound. Again, I'm in favor of always cooking too much or a little extra because I'm thinking of my future self. From a health standpoint, I really believe the more you home cook your food, the healthier it is because you get to control what goes in it. So if you can just make extra, then you've got leftovers for lunch or the next dinner that's home cooked, and it's, less effort. So now we've got our mushrooms. I'm putting them in a bowl because I'm gonna mix up a spice blend and then toss everything together really well with my hands before I get them on a baking sheet. I have a ton of dried spices here because this is tacos. We're gonna go with more Mexican-ish spices. We're gonna use chipotle pepper, some cumin. I found this really amazing black lime powder. A couple of pinches of salt. Black pepper. So, onion, garlic. I'm not measuring. The recipe will have measurements. Again, I don't think you need to worry too much about that. Just make sure that they're all roughly the same amount, about a teaspoon-ish. Black lime powder. I wish you guys could smell it, it's so good. Black lime. Some cumin. And I'm really conservative with my chili pepper, but again, you do you. I'm just gonna do just a couple of pinches. All right, mix your spices together. See, all right, I'm gonna be honest. I'm looking at this now. It feels like a lot. I might not end up using all of this, but again, put it on the side because we're gonna reuse a lot of these spices for the steak, which we will make next, so yeah. And if you're not making steak after it, just keep a spice rub aside, stick it in a bag in a drawer. You can reuse this, it's not a waste. I'm gonna add a little bit of sugar. The sugar is gonna help caramelize the edges and get those crispy edges. It's gonna do the same thing with the steak. So this doesn't need to be sweet. It's just the sugar helps with caramelizing these. You want these mushrooms to be caramelized and crispy. I don't want just spongy, wet mushrooms. That's not what we're going for. So I would say maybe half a teaspoon, just enough to get those brown edges going. Okay, mix that in again. All right, we've got the mushrooms. Olive oil. You could use avocado oil, but again, I prefer flavor here. Avocado is more neutral. I'm not looking for neutral flavor here. I want this to be flavorful. All right, lots of olive oil. And now we're gonna get a lot of big pinches of this spice rub. I might start there, toss some things around, and then add more. Oops. Get into all those little nooks and crannies. You want all that flavor to get into all these little places. Once these crisp up, and they just become so concentrated. So now I have a baking sheet. I have a baking sheet that I've already lined with parchment paper. I'm gonna get these mushrooms there, get them onto the pan. This is an extra large baking sheet. Try to spread them out evenly on the pan so that they're not crowded. We really want the heat to hit all of this and crisp things up. If your pan's overcrowded, sometimes things tend to steam a little bit more than crisp. So once you've spread everything out evenly, you're gonna put them into a 425-degree oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, depends on your oven. Just check on them. You're looking for those crispy edges. And you want the oven rack to be sort of upper rack. Okay, it's time to get the mushrooms out of the oven. Oh, okay. Yes, this is what we're looking for. See how much they've shrunk? Like, we put in a ton of mushrooms and they've shrunk down. So make a lot of mushrooms because you don't want to have a dinner party and not have enough food for your guests. That's a nightmare. But look, see all these, like, hear that? Like the crispy little bits, caramelized edges, look at that. They are perfect and gorgeous and exactly what I want them to be. Maybe I can try to taste one without burning myself. No, I'm gonna just have this tiny little piece. They're delicious. I'm a meat eater, and I would be more than happy to have this instead of steak if that was the only option, or with my steak. They're really, really good. Mushrooms are sponges, so they suck up all the flavor. So that olive oil with all those spices, it just pulls them in, and then you caramelize them. Damn. They're really good. Okay, put those to the side, and now we're gonna cook the steak. We are gonna be making a grilled skirt steak. We're gonna make this steak for tacos, so it's got cumin and chipotle, pepper, some black lime, onion and garlic powder. If you cannot find grass-fed or pastured meat in your local market, there are plenty of farms and ranches online that you can order from. They ship directly from the farm or the ranch to your door. It usually comes frozen and vacuum sealed like this. Skirt steak. It's a more affordable cut of meat. It's a very flavorful cut of meat. The catch is that it's kind of tough and chewy, but we have a solution to that. Looks like this. It's a long, narrow piece, and it's got these muscle fibers in them. A lot of people make the mistake of cutting with the grain, and then it keeps that meat very chewy. We're gonna make smaller sections out of it, and then when it comes time to slice it, we're gonna slice perpendicular against the grain, which will shorten those muscle strands and make it very tender and not chewy. I have a spice blend here. I'm just gonna add a little more to it of the same. A little bit of chipotle, chili powder. I'm not huge on hot spice, so I'm pretty conservative with this, but black lime powder. This is one of my favorite spices. It's good on chicken thighs too. It's good on fish. I'm just gonna add a little more. I think there was a decent amount of cumin in here. I'll just do a little pinch. And then some onion, granulated onion. This is coconut sugar, brown sugar. You could use brown sugar, regular sugar. Adding a little sugar to this rub, it's gonna help us get that crusty caramelized exterior like crust on the steak, and that's what you want. Skirt steak. We're gonna cut it down into about 3 sections per piece. So I'll start there. So now you have a manageable piece of meat. You wanna pat the steak dry, and then you wanna season it. And another thing you can do to help tenderize it, you season it with the salt and the spices, and you put it in the fridge for about 4 hours uncovered, and the salt will further tenderize the meat. When you take it out, just pat it dry. You just wanna make sure that you're not putting moist meat into a pan, because then it will steam, it will not get crunchy. This steak is thin, it cooks fast, so we wanna just get it on there with that sugar and dry and sear it and get that really beautiful crunchy exterior. So now I'm gonna season both sides with the spice rub. I would suggest doing it in a grill for a bunch of reasons. I mean, more so maybe convenience. Your house doesn't get smoky, but it's totally fine. We're gonna do it today in a cast iron skillet. We need a smoking hot cast iron skillet. And I actually mean smoking. I don't know if you can see, can you guys see the wisps of smoke coming off of the skillet? Do you see that? That is when you know your skillet is ready. You kind of want like a medium high heat. I'm gonna use avocado oil, better for high temperature cooking. Just a little bit, that. Spread it around, wait till it starts kind of rippling. You can see it's rippling, it's smoking. This moves fast, so we're just gonna go hot and high and quickly. We're not gonna touch it, first of all. We're gonna leave it alone so that it really gets that crusty exterior. I'm not gonna say that it's even amounts of time on both sides. I actually tend to cook it a little bit longer on this first side so that I get that presentation side so that it's really crusty and brown on the outside. And then we'll just flip it over and just finish it off for a minute or two. It's better if it's too rare and you need to kind of finish it off than overcook it. Don't be afraid of smoke. High heat temperature cooking, it's what they do in restaurants. Get the fan on, get the window open. You're gonna get better results. Ooh, okay, see, there we go. Look at that. That is what we want. All right, this is done. This is done. Dark brown, crusty. That's all that sugar going to work. All right, we're finishing up. We're taking these last pieces out. Get them on a plate, let them sit and rest for at least 10 minutes. I'm big on resting. And also, you don't have to worry about this meal being hot. It's a room temperature situation. It's totally fine. It takes the stress out of everything. While the meat rests, it'll finish cooking, and then we're good to go. We're gonna start building some tacos. Ooh, ooh. This is a nice alternative to tortilla chips. We've made all the things we're gonna be making from scratch, by hand. You could make your own salsa. To be honest, I often buy my pico de gallo from a local market, which I love. Sour cream for anyone who's eating dairy. This is actually a lactose-free sour cream for my daughter. And then shredded cheese, lime. So one way you can make it nicer is just by transferring these things to a bowl, especially if you're having a dinner party. If it's your family, obviously you don't need to do that. Get your shredded cheese into a bowl, fresh cut lime on the side. You can add some fresh cut cilantro and herbs. You could do a little bowl of chopped white onions. We have sliced cucumbers on the table. If some people don't even eat grains. Gluten-free tortillas are made from corn. They're gluten-free, but sometimes it's nice to add sliced cucumber for people that don't want to have chips. And then last but not least, our chipotle mayo for our dairy-free vegan creamy element. This is my favorite sauce. Put that in a pretty dish too. Our guacamole. Remember I told you that we had that airtight seal on it so it wouldn't go brown. It is still bright green. It's been in the fridge for a couple of hours. I've done this the day before and it's still just like this. If at any point you pull something off and there's a little bit of brown, just take a spoon and just scrape off that exterior layer. The fresh green will be right underneath the surface. You won't lose a lot. There we go. I think it's important to put your food on pretty dishes, especially if you're hosting a dinner party. It can even make store-bought stuff look nice. Put a spoon in your guacamole so everyone isn't jamming their chips in it and their chips aren't breaking off into the bowl. It's much nicer and easier for everybody to help themselves. We're good to go. So I'm gonna slice the steak and get that on a platter. Okay, so before I serve this to my family, I need to taste everything, make sure it's just right. So let's see, I'm gonna start with some slaw. I'm gonna go for steak and mushroom because I like both. I do a little bit of pico. I'm not gonna put guac in my taco. I rather have that with my cucumber slices. I am put this chipotle mayo because I love it. And then of course, fresh lime, always. Juicy lime. All right, it's still gonna spill out, but whatever. Okay. Ready? On a soft corn, gluten-free corn tortilla. There's no cute way to eat a taco. So good. Everything I want in a taco. Slaw, steak, mushrooms. I love the little freshness of the pico and then the creamy chipotle mayo. So good. Do I have to say an outro?
That's the best outro.
No!
You can. Yes, that's your outro.
Okay.
You should get some cilantro stuck in your teeth too, purposely.
So good.